You think you know the truth. You believe her, a bitter ex, him, a meddling billionaire? All blind. I built this empire. I did, and I won't let you tear it down. The voice cracked. Despair leaked out. You call me a criminal? Prove it. Where are the police? Where are the judges? This is my wedding, my life, and none of you. Before he could finish, the doors burst open. 2 uniformed police officers entered. Their badges gleamed under the chandeliers. Behind them, a serious investigator in a dark suit whose presence commanded silence. Guests gasped. Some clutched their necklaces. Others raised cell phones, eager to record live history. Victor's face went pale. "What is this?" he demanded, his voice trembling. The investigator stepped forward. He pulled a folded paper from his pocket. His voice calm, authoritative. "Victor Sterling, you are under suspicion of embezzlement, tax fraud, and money laundering. We have an arrest warrant." New shouts of astonishment. Cameras flashed. Guests vied for angles. Others raised cell phones, eager to record live history. Victor's face went pale. "What is this?" he demanded, his voice trembling. The investigator stepped forward. He pulled a folded paper from his pocket. His voice calm, authoritative. "Victor Sterling, you are under suspicion of embezzlement, tax fraud, and money laundering. We have an arrest warrant." New shouts of astonishment. Cameras flashed. Guests vied for angles. Victor staggered, shaking his head. "No, no, this isn't happening. It's a mistake. It's Thorne's doing." Maximus's eyes narrowed, his arms crossed. "No, Victor, it's justice catching up with you." Victor turned to the crowd. He sought compassion, allies, someone to defend him. But the same investors who applauded him before now turned away. Politicians discreetly slipped out through side doors. Even the groomsmen stood aside, so as not to be dragged into his fall. "No!" Victor shouted, lunging forward as the police approached. "Serena, where is she? Serena, help me!" His voice broke into a pathetic lament. Serena, and everyone knew, was already gone. The police held his arms, handcuffing him with precision. He struggled, vociferated. The facade of self-confidence had crumbled into a furious chaos of denial. "This isn't fair! I am Victor Sterling! You can't do this to me! I made millions! I made history!" The investigator's voice cut through the hysteria. "You made a mess, and now you will answer for it." The crowd buzzed. Some shook their heads in disgust. Others whispered that it was high time. Aurora watched. Her children clung to her. For years, she had prayed for justice, that the world would see Victor's true face. And now, under chandeliers and cameras, he was exposed. Not as a triumphant groom, but as a criminal, dragged away in handcuffs from his own wedding. Victor's eyes sought hers as the police led him away. Hatred and fear burned in his gaze. "This isn't over yet," he spat. His voice echoed as he was dragged to the doors. "You will regret this, Aurora! You all will regret this!" The threats sounded hollow, drowned out by the disgusted murmuring and the click of the handcuffs. And when the doors closed, the hall sighed with relief. In unison. Victor Sterling had entered the night as a groom. He left as a prisoner. While Victor, handcuffed, was being led from the hall, Serena Vance was already halfway down the hotel's marble staircase. Her heart pounded, her heels hammered on the stone. Photographers surrounded her. She tried to hide her face. The flashes were relentless. "Serena, did you know about the embezzlement? Did you abandon your fiancé on your wedding night? Was it just for the money?" The questions tore through her composure. She had dreamed of that night as her coronation, the night she would ascend to the glittering sphere of wealth and power. Instead, she was fleeing in disgrace. Her designer dress dragged on the asphalt, the diamond ring left on the marble of the hall. She dove into a waiting car. She slammed the door as cameras pounded on the windows. Her hands trembled as she dialed. Despair clutched her. "Hector, answer," she growled. Hector, her secret safety net, a wealthy investor she had insinuated herself with behind Victor's back. If the empire fell, she counted on Hector to support her. When he answered, his tone was icy. "Serena, do you think I'm blind? Your name is already in all the headlines. Do you know what this scandal would do to me?" "Please, Hector, listen to me," she pleaded. "I had nothing to do with it. Victor also deceived me. Now I'm free. I can be with you." He laughed bitterly. "Free? You're radioactive. Nobody wants you around. My reputation is worth more than your image. Don't call me ever again." The line went dead. Serena stared at the screen. Her stomach sank. One by one, she tried other contacts, model friends, rich acquaintances. Every conversation ended the same way. Some didn't even answer. Others coldly dismissed her. Doors that once opened easily now slammed in her face. The next morning, the tabloids already branded her as the fortune-hunting bride. Photos of her escape graced the covers. Headlines tripped with scorn. From diamonds to dust. Serena Vance abandons fiancé in scandal. Brands she modeled for silently discarded her. Influence partnerships disappeared. As if fate wanted more cruelty, creditors began to gather. Serena lived a luxury she couldn't afford. The diamond ring left on the marble of the hall. She dove into a waiting car. She slammed the door as cameras pounded on the windows. Her hands trembled as she dialed. Despair clutched her. "Hector, answer," she growled. Hector, her secret safety net, a wealthy investor she had insinuated herself with behind Victor's back. If the empire fell, she counted on Hector to support her. When he answered, his tone was icy. "Serena, do you think I'm blind? Your name is already in all the headlines. Do you know what this scandal would do to me?" "Please, Hector, listen to me," she pleaded. "I had nothing to do with it. Victor also deceived me. Now I'm free. I can be with you." He laughed bitterly. "Free? You're radioactive. Nobody wants you around. My reputation is worth more than your image. Don't call me ever again." The line went dead. Serena stared at the screen. Her stomach sank. One by one, she tried other contacts, model friends, rich acquaintances. Every conversation ended the same way. Some didn't even answer. Others coldly dismissed her. Doors that once opened easily now slammed in her face. The next morning, the tabloids already branded her as the fortune-hunting bride. Photos of her escape graced the covers. Headlines dripped with scorn. From diamonds to dust. Serena Vance abandons fiancé in scandal. Brands she modeled for silently discarded her. Influence partnerships disappeared. As if fate wanted more cruelty, creditors began to gather. Serena lived a luxury she couldn't afford.
You think you know the truth. You believe her, a bitter ex. Him, a meddling billionaire. All of you are blind. I built this empire. I did, and I won't let you tear it down. The voice cracked. Desperation leaked out. You call me a criminal? Prove it. Where are the police? Where are the judges? This is my wedding, my life, and none of you... Before he could finish, the doors burst open with a crash. Two uniformed police officers entered. Their badges gleamed under the chandeliers. Behind them, a serious investigator in a dark suit, whose presence commanded silence. Guests gasped. Some clutched their necklaces. Others raised cell phones, eager to record live history. Victor's face paled. "What is this?" he demanded, his voice trembling. The investigator stepped forward. He pulled a folded paper from his pocket. His voice was calm, authoritative. "Victor Sterling, you are suspected of embezzlement, tax fraud, and money laundering. We have an arrest warrant." More gasps of astonishment. Cameras flashed. Guests vied for angles. Others raised cell phones, eager to record live history. Victor's face paled. "What is this?" he demanded, his voice trembling. The investigator stepped forward. He pulled a folded paper from his pocket. His voice was calm, authoritative. "Victor Sterling, you are suspected of embezzlement, tax fraud, and money laundering. We have an arrest warrant." More gasps of astonishment. Cameras flashed. Guests vied for angles. Victor's face paled. "What is this?" he demanded, his voice trembling. The investigator stepped forward. He pulled a folded paper from his pocket. His voice was calm, authoritative. "Victor Sterling, you are suspected of embezzlement, tax fraud, and money laundering. We have an arrest warrant." More gasps of astonishment. Cameras flashed. Guests vied for angles. Victor staggered, shaking his head. No, this isn't happening. It's a mistake. It's Thorne's doing." Maximus's eyes narrowed, his arms crossed. "No, Victor, it's justice catching up to you." Victor turned to the crowd. He sought compassion, allies, someone to defend him. But the same investors who had applauded him earlier now turned away. Politicians discreetly slipped out through side doors. Even the groomsmen stepped aside, so as not to be dragged down in his fall. "No!" Victor screamed, lunging forward as the police approached. "Serena, where is she? Serena, help me!" His voice broke into a pathetic lament. Serena, and everyone knew, was already gone. The police held his arms, handcuffing him with precision. He struggled, he vociferated. The facade of self-confidence had crumbled into a furious chaos of denial. "This isn't fair. I'm Victor Sterling. You can't do this to me. I made millions. I made history." The investigator's voice cut through the hysteria. "You made a mess, and now you will answer for it." The crowd buzzed. Some shook their heads in disgust. Others whispered that it was long overdue. Aurora watched. Her children clung to her. For years, she had prayed for justice, for the world to see Victor's true face. And now, under chandeliers and cameras, he was exposed, not as a triumphant groom, but as a criminal, dragged away in handcuffs from his own wedding. Victor's eyes sought hers as the police led him away. Hatred and fear burned in his gaze. "This isn't over yet," he spat. His voice echoed as he was dragged to the doors. "You will regret this, Aurora. All of you will regret this." The threat sounded hollow, drowned out by the disgusted murmur and the click of the handcuffs. And as the doors closed, the hall sighed in relief, in unison. Victor Sterling had entered the night as a groom. He left as a prisoner. As Victor, handcuffed, was led from the ballroom, Serena Vance was already halfway down the hotel's marble staircase. Her heart pounded, her heels hammered on the stone. Photographers surrounded her. She tried to hide her face. The flashes were relentless. "Serena, did you know about the embezzlement? Did you abandon your fiancé on your wedding night? Was it just for the money?" The questions tore through her composure. She had dreamed of that night as her coronation, the night she would ascend to the glittering sphere of wealth and power. Instead, she was fleeing in disgrace. Her designer dress dragged on the asphalt, the diamond ring left on the marble. She plunged into a waiting car. She slammed the door as cameras pounded on the windows. Her hands trembled as she dialed. Desperation gnawed. "Hector, answer," she snarled. Hector, her secret safety net, a wealthy investor with whom she had insinuated herself behind Victor's back. If the empire fell, she was counting on Hector to support her. When he answered, his tone was icy. "Serena, Do you think I'm blind? Your name is already in all the headlines. Do you know what this scandal would do to me? Please, Hector, listen to me, she pleaded. I had nothing to do with this. Victor also deceived me. Now I'm free. I can be with you. He laughed bitterly. Free? You're radioactive. Nobody wants you around. My reputation is worth more than your image. Never call me again. The line went dead. Serena stared at the screen. Her stomach sank. One by one, she tried other contacts, model friends, rich acquaintances. Each conversation ended the same. Some didn't even answer. Others coldly dismissed her. Doors that had once opened easily now slammed in her face. The next morning, the tabloids were already stamping her as the gold-digging bride. Photos of her escape graced the covers. Headlines dripped with scorn, from diamonds to dust. Serena Vance abandons fiancé in scandal. Brands she modeled for silently dropped her. Influencer partnerships vanished. As if fate wanted more cruelty, creditors began to gather. Serena lived a luxury she couldn't afford.
He raised his champagne glass and declared, "Tonight, I leave the past behind. Only success lies ahead." But the truth was, Victor had not invited Aurora just to flaunt his new life. He wanted a spectacle. He wanted to prove that he had risen while she had fallen. He wanted her presence to serve as a living reminder of his superiority. Some guests, aware of the bitter divorce, chuckled, imagining Aurora arriving in a thrift store dress, downcast, tired, broken. "She'll probably beg," Victor had quipped earlier, "and we'll all laugh." The orchestra's crescendo marked the moment of the ceremony. The officiant at the ready. The air perfumed by lush floral arrangements, and the ballroom in an almost palpable anticipation. Beneath all the glitter, a silent tension simmered. The question, would Aurora come? At the grand doors, a murmur rippled through the crowd. A valet rushed in and whispered something to the maitre. The music stalled. Heads turned to the golden doors, waiting, curious. Victor smiled, convinced his trap was about to close. Serena's smile widened, hungry for the show. The guests leaned forward, eager for drama. No one imagined that the woman about to enter would not be the broken, pathetic ex-wife they expected. She would be the storm that would shatter their perfect illusion. Victor Sterling had perfected the art of dissimulation. To the guests in the grand Crystal Palace ballroom, he seemed the ideal groom. Charming, successful, the man who climbed the ladder of wealth and conquered the ultimate prize, a young, glamorous wife. But beneath the impeccable tuxedo and the rehearsed smile hid a man whose desire was fueled by cruelty. Victor's path to success was not paved solely with hard work. It was carved with betrayals, shortcuts, and broken promises. When he married Aurora years ago, he had little more than a modest salary and big dreams. Aurora's quiet dedication, her willingness to sacrifice, gave him stability. But as soon as his career prospered, Victor began to see her as a hindrance. He complained about her simple appearance, mocked her for not keeping up with the wives of his wealthy colleagues, and ridiculed her every effort to keep the family together. When Aurora revealed she was expecting triplets, Victor's mask fell completely. Instead of joy, his eyes filled with calculation. 3 children meant more expenses, more responsibility, less freedom to pursue wealth and pleasure. "You ruined my life," he spat one night, slamming the door as she cried on the floor. From then on, his visits became rare. His excuses grew outlandish until he finally kicked her out. To him, Aurora was just a chapter to be erased. Then came Serena Vance, the glittering replacement.
Serena was everything Aurora was not, at least in Victor's eyes. Young, glamorous, and from a wealthy circle. In public, a rising model, photographed with a champagne glass at fashion events. Behind the makeup and designer dresses, however, was a woman as calculating as Victor. She saw no love in him. She saw opportunity. With Victor, she could secure the lifestyle she desired. Diamonds, yachts, parties and mansions. It was Serena who encouraged Victor to flaunt his new life. It was she who turned up her nose at the mere mention of Aurora. "Invite her," she whispered when preparations began. "Let her see what she lost. Let everyone see what you gained." Her cruelty was not just a feeling of superiority. It was to crush any threat to her new position as Mrs. Sterling. Together, Victor and Serena formed a perfect storm of arrogance and greed. They fed off each other's vanity, blind to the murmurs around them. Some guests admired their audacity, others shook their heads, sensing disaster. But Victor and Serena didn't care. They believed themselves untouchable, above any judgment, destined for a life of endless pleasures. As Victor led Serena through the ballroom, his laughter sounded hollow, but his pride swelled with every envious glance. He reveled in the idea of Aurora entering, pale and weak, confirming to the world that he had evolved. Serena clung to his arm. Her diamond bracelet caught the light. Her eyes sparkled with cruel expectation. They thought they had staged the perfect spectacle. Aurora as the tragic figure, Victor as the triumphant, Serena as the glittering prize. But the story they were trying to write was about to crumble, because the woman they discarded as weak had transformed, and the kingdom they displayed was built on sand, awaiting the tide that would sweep everything away. And that night, the tide arrived. The plan to humiliate Aurora was not born solely of Victor's arrogance. It was meticulously crafted, whispered in late-night conversations between him and Serena.
"Tonight, I leave the past behind. There is only success ahead." But the truth was, Victor hadn't invited Aurora just to flaunt his new life. He wanted a spectacle. He wanted to prove he had risen while she had fallen. He wanted her presence to serve as a living reminder of his superiority. Some guests, aware of the bitter divorce, chuckled, imagining Aurora arriving in a thrift store dress, haggard, tired, broken. "She'll probably beg," Victor had quipped earlier, "and we'll all laugh." The orchestra's crescendo marked the moment of the ceremony, the officiant ready, the air scented by lush floral arrangements, and the hall in almost palpable anticipation. Beneath all the sparkle, a silent tension simmered. The question, would Aurora come? At the grand doors, a murmur rippled through the crowd. A valet rushed in and whispered something to the maitre d'. The music stalled. Heads turned to the golden doors, waiting, curious. Victor smiled, convinced his trap was about to close. Serena's smile widened, hungry for the spectacle. Guests leaned forward, thirsty for drama. No one imagined that the woman about to enter would not be the broken, pathetic ex-wife they expected. She would be the storm that would shatter their perfect illusion. Victor Sterling had perfected the art of dissimulation. To the guests in the grand Crystal Palace ballroom, he seemed the ideal groom. Charming, successful, the man who climbed the ladder of wealth and won the ultimate prize, a young, glamorous wife. But beneath the impeccable tuxedo and the rehearsed smile hid a man whose desire was fueled by cruelty. Victor's path to success was not paved solely with hard work. It was carved from betrayals, shortcuts, and broken promises. When he married Aurora years ago, he had little more than a modest salary and big dreams. Aurora's silent dedication, her willingness to sacrifice, gave him stability. But as soon as his career prospered, Victor began to see her as a hindrance. He complained about her simple appearance, mocked her for not keeping up with the wives of his wealthy colleagues, and ridiculed her every effort to keep the family together. When Aurora revealed she was expecting triplets, Victor's mask completely fell. Instead of joy, his eyes filled with calculation. 3 children meant more expenses, more responsibility, less freedom to pursue wealth and pleasure. "You ruined my life," he spat one night, slamming the door as she cried on the floor. From then on, his visits became rare. His excuses became elaborate until he finally kicked her out. To him, Aurora was just a chapter to be erased. Then came Serena Vance, the shimmering replacement. Serena was everything Aurora was not, at least in Victor's eyes. Young, glamorous, and from a wealthy circle. In public, a rising model, photographed with a champagne glass at fashion events. Behind the makeup and designer dresses, however, was a woman as calculating as Victor. She didn't see love in him, she saw opportunity. With Victor, she could secure the lifestyle she desired: diamonds, yachts, parties, and mansions. It was Serena who encouraged Victor to flaunt his new life. It was she who turned up her nose at the mere mention of Aurora. "Invite her," she whispered when preparations began. "Let her see what she lost. Let everyone see what you gained." Her cruelty wasn't just a feeling of superiority. It was to crush any threat to her new position as Mrs. Sterling. Together, Victor and Serena formed a perfect storm of arrogance and greed. They fed off each other's vanity, blind to the murmurs around them. Some guests admired their audacity. Others shook their heads, sensing disaster. But Victor and Serena didn't care. They believed themselves untouchable, above any judgment, destined for a life of endless pleasures. As Victor led Serena through the ballroom, his laughter sounded hollow, but his pride swelled with every envious glance. He delighted in the idea of Aurora entering pale and weak, confirming to the world that he had evolved. Serena clung to his arm. Her diamond bracelet caught the light. Her eyes gleamed with cruel expectation. They thought they had staged the perfect spectacle. Aurora as the tragic figure, Victor as the triumphant groom, Serena as the glittering prize. But the story they were trying to write was about to crumble, because the woman they had discarded as weak had transformed, and the kingdom they displayed was built on sand, awaiting the tide that would take everything. And that night, the tide arrived. The plan to humiliate Aurora was not born solely of Victor's arrogance. It was meticulously crafted, whispered in late-night conversations between him and Serena.
Perhaps it was time to face it, however painful it might be. Even so, fear overwhelmed her. She imagined herself standing in that hall in her simple dress, the children clinging to her, every gaze condemning, every laugh like knives in her heart. She saw Victor's smile, Serena's cruel laugh, the whispers, "There's the poor ex-wife. Look how she's fallen." Her chest ached with shame. She didn't know if she could bear it. That night, with the rain drumming against the window, Aurora curled up on the sofa and let the weight of life crush her. She cried until her throat burned, until exhaustion dragged her into a restless sleep. In her dreams, she saw Victor's face, mocking, telling her she was nothing. She saw Serena laughing, covered in jewels, and she saw herself, alone, broken, invisible. Aurora didn't know it yet, but the storm raging in her chest was exactly the fire that would soon lead her to the hall, not as a victim, but as a force that neither Victor nor Serena would be able to silence. Because rock bottom was not her end. It was the beginning of her ascent. Dawn filtered through the thin curtains of Aurora's apartment, highlighting the weariness etched on her face. She had barely slept. Her mind cycled between the fear of humiliation and the low anger burning in her chest. The triplets stirred in their crib. Small hands reached out, reminding her of the only reason to continue. She bent down, kissed each one, and whispered promises without knowing if she could keep them. A knock at the door made her jump. Hesitating, she pulled on her worn sweater. Visitors were rare. When she opened the door, she froze. In the hallway stood Maximus Thorne. Aurora knew him. Everyone in the city knew him. He was the elusive billionaire investor who rarely appeared in public, except at charity events. Tall, broad-shouldered, eyes that carried the weight of many storms. Maximus was a figure equally admired and feared. She had read his name in newspapers, linked to major deals and hospital donations, but she never expected him to be at her door. Aurora Hayes. His voice was calm, firm. "I hope I'm not disturbing you." Confused, she nodded. "Yes, that's me, but why are you here?" He glanced at the modest apartment, the toys, the crib, the obvious signs of struggle. For a moment, his jaw tightened. Then he met her gaze. "Because I know what he did to you, and because I've seen this story before." Aurora stiffened. Distrust rose. "If Victor sent you?" "Victor didn't send me," Maximus cut in, convinced. "I'm here because I watched my own mother go through what you're experiencing. My father left her for another woman when she was sick. She died alone of cancer. Years later, my wife." His voice faltered for a moment. He forced himself to continue. "My wife also battled cancer. I did everything I could, and yet I lost her. I know what it's like to see someone you love suffer from cruelty and betrayal, and I swore I would never stand by when I saw it happen again." Aurora's breath caught. The harshness in his voice wasn't pity. It was pain, deeply carved by his own scars. "I don't want charity," she whispered, ashamed of the tremor in her voice. Maximus shook his head. "It's not charity, it's justice. Victor believes he can display his cruelty without consequences. He's mistaken. You don't have to fight alone." She stared at him, her heart torn between disbelief and a fragile hope she hadn't allowed herself for years. Why would a man like him, with such wealth and power, care about her? But when she looked into his eyes, she saw no judgment or scorn, only recognition, as if her pain mirrored his own. "I can't march into that wedding," Aurora said, her voice breaking. "Not like this, not the way he wants, for me to collapse." "Then don't enter as a victim," Maximus replied softly. "Enter as the woman he underestimated. I'll make sure of it." The promise sounded like steel. For the first time in years, Aurora felt a faint spark of strength return to her chest. What she didn't know yet was that this man, also broken by loss and rebuilt by compassion, would transform Victor's cruel stage into the battlefield of his downfall. And Maximus Thorne never entered a battle to lose. The days until Victor's wedding blurred together. Between caring for the triplets and the doubts that pricked her chest, Aurora wondered if it had been a mistake to even consider Maximus's help. Every time she looked at the invitation on the table, she felt the weight of Victor's cruelty crushing her. He wanted to see her humiliated, broken. But Maximus was not a man of empty promises. On the morning of the wedding, a sleek black limousine waited outside the building. Aurora gasped from the window, hugging her children tightly. Neighbors peered from their doorways, shocked. For the first time in years, she wouldn't leave the house pushing a stroller and carrying wrinkles of worry.
She was about to enter something extraordinary. "Aurora," Maximus said, extending his hand as she approached, "today is not about him. It's about you reclaiming your dignity. Let me help show the world who you truly are." Inside the limousine, leather seats gleamed. Soft music filled the air, and a stylist waited with racks of dresses. Aurora gasped, "It's too much. I can't." Maximus shook his head. "You've already given up too much. Let me give something back to you." The stylist guided her through the dresses, one more beautiful than the next. At first, Aurora hesitated.
Her fingers trembled as she touched silk and satin. But as she slipped into a deep sapphire blue, the atmosphere seemed to shift. The fabric enhanced her figure. The color lit up her eyes. For the first time in years, she didn't see a tired mother in the mirror. She saw a woman reborn. Her children, in matching tiny tuxedos and dresses, clapped innocently. "Mommy, you look like a princess," one of the boys exclaimed proudly. Tears filled Aurora's eyes as she hugged them. They had only seen her in worn clothes and exhausted smiles. That night, they saw her strength shine. Makeup erased the shadows of sleepless nights. Soft curls fell. A diamond necklace, a silent gift from Maximus, rested on her collarbone and caught the light. She touched it nervously. He only said, "Consider it your armor." As the limousine sped towards the grand crystal palace, Aurora's nerves swirled. She imagined Victor's smirk, Serena's laughter, the crowd's whispers. Her palms became damp with fear. Maximus noticed. "Do you know what makes a storm strong, Aurora?" he asked softly. She stared at him, confused. "It doesn't ask permission. It simply comes. Tonight, you are that storm." Aurora exhaled. An uncertain laugh escaped. For years, she had cowered, hidden, tried only to survive. But tonight, she would not hide. Tonight, she would enter the hall, not as Victor's rejected ex-wife, but as the woman he never truly knew. The limousine slowed before the brightly lit entrance of the hotel. Photographers jostled outside. Cameras flashed with every guest. The instant the doors opened, a murmur rippled through the crowd. Aurora emerged, radiant. Her children followed behind, like royal heirs. Maximus by her side, silent, powerful. For the first time in years, the world did not laugh at her. It stood reverent, in silence. And inside, Victor's perfect stage was about to become his greatest humiliation. The grand crystal palace shimmered like a golden kingdom. That night, guests twirled in gowns and tuxedos across the ballroom. Laughter echoed beneath heavy crystal chandeliers. The quartet played a delicate melody, while champagne flowed like water. For the assembled elite, the night was a show of wealth and power. But in a few minutes, it would become something much more unforgettable. The golden doors opened slowly, almost ceremonially, and the first sound that cut through the music was the collective gasp of the crowd. Outside, a sleek black limousine had pulled up. Its polished body reflected spotlights and flashes. Photographers surged forward. Their voices rose above the music. "Who is it? Who has arrived?" And then she appeared. Aurora Hayes, no longer the exhausted mother silently fighting for survival. No longer the rejected ex-wife Victor had always considered her. That night, she was an apparition. Her sapphire blue dress shimmered with every step. Her hair fell in soft waves, and the diamond necklace caught the light like a crown jewel. Her back was straight, her chin held high, her eyes calm and combative. She moved with the grace of a queen who no longer has anything to fear. The buzz grew. Is that really her, Victor's ex? She looks incredible. I thought she was destroyed. But Aurora was not alone. Beside her, Maximus Thorne, the enigmatic billionaire whose mere presence made a room fall silent. His dark suit impeccable, his hand resting gently and protectively on Aurora's back. The sight of him accompanying her sent shockwaves through the ballroom. Guests leaned in, whispering frantically, "Why is she with him? Maximus never brings anyone to events like this. What does this mean?" And then, the final blow. 3 small figures emerged from the limousine. Aurora's triplets, in tuxedos and a sparkling dress. Their large eyes reflected innocence and pride. They grasped their mother's hands, oblivious to the chaos their presence caused. Gasps turned into silence. Whispers spread through the hall like wildfire. They're his children. They're the spitting image of Victor. My God, he abandoned them. In the ballroom, Victor's confident smile froze on his lips. The champagne glass trembled slightly in his hand. For weeks, he had boasted about the humiliation Aurora would bring upon herself should she dare to show up.
But now, seeing her glide through the ballroom with a billionaire by her side and 3 living reminders of his betrayal behind her, the humiliation was his. Serena's face hardened. Her carefully applied smile cracked at the edges. She gripped Victor's arm, her nails digging into the fabric. "What is she doing here, and with him?" she hissed. The orchestra faltered, notes lost as each musician stared at the entrance. The ballroom, recently full of laughter and vanity, transformed into a stage of tension. All eyes followed Aurora as her heels clicked on the polished marble. She did not quicken her pace. She did not cower. She moved with steady confidence. Her gaze was forward. She ignored the whispers. She ignored Victor's pale face. She was not there to be a victim. She was there to reclaim her dignity. And as the doors closed behind her, sealing the silence, a truth became clear to everyone in that glittering ballroom. The woman they expected to mourn had arrived to be admired. The silence stretched like glass, ready to shatter. Aurora stood tall in her sapphire blue, Maximus by her side. The triplets clung to their hands. The whisper rose, a storm of curiosity and scandal. Victor felt every gaze shift from him and Serena to the woman he wanted to bury in shame. Rage burned in his chest. This was not the scene he had planned. She was supposed to look small, weak, desperate. Instead, she had stolen the spotlight. His pride demanded action. He stepped forward, forcing a smile and raising his glass. "Well, look who decided to show up." His voice reverberated off the marble. "My ex-wife, how touching." The crowd stirred, uncomfortable. His tone dripped venom, disguised as grace. Serena squeezed his arm and smiled, egging him on. Victor approached, circling Aurora like a predator. "Tell me, Aurora, did you borrow that dress, or did Mr. Thorne buy it for you? It must be strange, isn't it, to walk into a place like this after living, what was it, in a tiny, dilapidated apartment?" On the edges of the crowd, an unsure, hesitant laugh. Aurora's heart hammered in her chest, but she refused to lower her eyes. She opened her mouth to reply, and Maximus's calm hand on her back stopped her. His presence said, "Not yet." Victor wasn't finished. He leaned in, his voice sharper. "And to bring the children? My God, Aurora, was it to elicit pity? Or did you expect someone here to feel sorry for you and write you a check?" A murmur of disgust rippled through the guests. The cruelty echoed through the hall. The triplets clung tighter to their mother, sensing the tension. For an instant, Aurora felt the old shame, the familiar sting of his scorn. But she met Maximus's gaze, calm, unwavering, and remembered she was not alone. Before she could speak, Maximus stepped forward. His voice was serene, but carried an authority that silenced the ballroom. "You speak of pity, Mr. Sterling," he said, impassively. "But what I see before me is not a woman who deserves pity. I see a woman who has endured more than you ever could, and done so with dignity." Victor's smile wavered. He forced a laugh. "And who are you to lecture me?" Maximus's lips curved into a cold smile. "I am the man who stands by her when you chose to leave her. I am the man who recognizes her worth when you threw it away. And I am the man who will ensure the world knows what kind of husband you truly were." The ballroom erupted in whispers. Serena paled. She felt the walls closing in. Victor's mask cracked. Rage flashed. "This is my wedding," he barked. "You don't belong here." Aurora finally stepped forward, her voice firm,
clear. No, Victor, you are mistaken. I belong here more than you realize, because while you celebrate your new life, you can never erase me or the children you abandoned. We are living proof of the man you truly are. Exclamations of astonishment echoed. Sharp glances turned, full of judgment. Victor opened his mouth to retort, but nothing came out. For the first time, he was speechless. And in that silence, the carefully and falsely built empire began to crack. The ballroom buzzed with an uneasy whisper, the air heavy with tension. Aurora's words had struck like lightning, but it was Maximus who would command the storm. Standing tall, he exuded quiet authority. All eyes converged on him. Victor's jaw stiffened. "Enough," he growled, his voice trembled with anger. "This circus ends now. Security!" Maximus raised his hand and effortlessly silenced him. "Before you try to eject her, Mr. Sterling," he said levelly, "perhaps you should concern yourself with what I brought tonight." The crowd stirred, curiosity sparked like a fuse. Necks craned, hungry for drama. Even the quartet fell silent, their bows suspended in the air. Victor forced a laugh. "And what exactly did you bring? Pity? Sermons? This is my night, Thorne, not yours." Maximus's gaze sharpened. His tone remained calm, deadly. "What I have," he said, pulling a black folder from his inner pocket, "is the truth." He placed the folder on the nearest table. The silence deepened. With deliberate calm, he opened it, revealing meticulously organized documents. "These," he announced, his voice projecting across the hall, "are financial records. Records that prove Victor Sterling has been embezzling money from his own company for over 2 years." Horrified exclamations popped up. Glasses clinked against marble as guests exchanged shocked glances. Some were already pulling out their phones, firing off messages, eager for the scandal. The blood drained from Victor's face. "Lies!" he roared. "It's false! He's trying to defame me!" Maximus didn't yield. "It's not false. Verified transfers, passing through offshore accounts. Shell companies masking losses. Stolen money financing your lifestyle. Vacations, cars, even this wedding." He paused, his gaze fixed on Victor's eyes. "You invited Aurora to humiliate her. Instead, you invited her to witness your downfall." Serena clutched Victor's arm, panic in her eyes. "Is it true?" she whispered. "Of course not," he snarled, pulling away. "He's bluffing." Maximus leaned in, his voice cutting through the chaos. "Bluff? Then why do I have signed correspondence between you and your accountant? Why do I have recordings of phone calls where you authorize these transfers?" The hall erupted in murmurs again. Investors fidgeted in their seats, their expressions hardening. Politicians slipped towards the exits, eager for distance. Even his closest friends backed away, not wanting to be sullied by proximity. Aurora stood still, her heart pounding. For years, she had dreamed Victor would face consequences, that the world would finally see the cruelty she had endured. And now, under shimmering chandeliers, justice unfolded before her eyes. Victor's mask crumbled. Sweat streamed down his forehead. His voice rose, desperate. "This is a setup. He wants to destroy me. You know me. I built my empire with hard work." No one believed him. His voice, once imperious, sounded hollow, desperate, pathetic. Maximus straightened. He closed the folder with quiet finality. "Hard work doesn't leave a trail of stolen millions, Mr. Sterling. Your empire was built on lies, and tonight they end." For a moment, silence. The truth weighed like a hammer. Then a guest in the front row murmured loud enough, "He's finished." And at that exact instant, the tide turned. The man who had orchestrated a night of humiliation for his ex-wife was now exposed, trembling, his empire crumbling, before exactly whom he wanted to impress. And everyone in that brilliant hall understood. They were no longer watching a wedding. They were watching a downfall. The hall spun into chaos. Whispers turned into accusations. Eyes once admired, now sharpened with repulsion. Victor Sterling, minutes before, at the top of the realm he had built, dissolved before the audience he wanted to seduce. And, beside him, Serena Vance, the shimmering bride, felt her perfect world crack. First, she stood motionless, clutching his arm, as if his strength could still protect her. But, as Maximus's words sank in, and the documents spread like wildfire through eager hands, the truth became undeniable. The empire she was about to marry into was nothing but stolen wealth, a house of cards trembling in the wind. Her grip loosened. Her eyes darted from guest to guest, reading judgment, contempt. The whispers cut worse than knives. She must have known. Gold digger. She chose him for money, and now there's nothing left. Serena's stomach churned. This was not the life for which she had traded youth and ambition. She had imagined jets, magazine covers, charity galas, diamond-studded futures, not bankruptcies and jail visits. "Victor," she hissed, her polished voice cracking with panic. "Tell me it's not true. Tell me it's a lie." His face contorted, desperation bit. "Of course it's not true. Don't listen to him." But she had already seen the sweat on his forehead, the tremor in his hands, the emptiness in his gaze. She had seen men bluff, and she knew the difference between confidence and collapse. Serena took a dry step back. Her heels clicked on the marble. Gasps followed the movement. Victor's head snapped around. "What are you doing?" "I'm not going down with you," she spat. Her voice now loud, trembling, but clear enough for all to hear. "I did not choose to marry a criminal." The crowd exploded, some shocked, others with malicious satisfaction. For the first time that night, it wasn't Aurora or Maximus who were humiliating Victor. It was the woman he had chosen in place of his wife. "Serena," Victor barked, his voice failed. "Don't you dare abandon me. Do you think you'll survive without me? You're nothing without my name."
But Serena had already taken off the diamond ring. She held it up for everyone to see, her face cold, distant. "Your name is worth nothing now." And she let the ring fall onto the marble. The sound cut through the air. Victor lunged, his face red with hatred. "Ungrateful!" Security guards, reading the mood, placed themselves between the two. Serena spun on her heel. Her dress whispered behind her. Her heels clacked like gunshots as she exited the ballroom. Photographers rushed after her. The sea of flashes captured his betrayal for the morning headlines. Victor stood petrified, his chest heaving. His bride gone, his empire exposed, his dignity torn apart before hundreds. And Aurora saw everything. Her children clutched her hands. For years, she had carried the weight of Victor's cruelty, the shame of being discarded. Now, before everyone, the man who tried to erase her was erased, piece by piece. And the blade that cut deepest was wielded neither by Aurora nor by Maximus. It was wielded by the woman Victor once thought would be his crowning glory. Never had the ballroom been silent. No sooner had Serena's footsteps faded than all eyes returned to Victor, and then to Aurora. She stood firm in sapphire blue. The triplets clung to her. The crowd held its breath, sensing that the storm was not yet over. Victor tried to regain control. He smoothed his tuxedo, forced a bitter laugh. "Idiots," he spat. "You believe these lies from a bitter ex and a bored billionaire. Don't forget, she is nothing without me." Aurora's hands squeezed her children's hands. For years, these words had poisoned her. "Nothing without me."
They had echoed in her head. Sleepless nights, lonely hospital visits, endless hours at low-paying jobs to feed her babies. But that night, surrounded by witnesses, she finally understood that she no longer feared his words. That night, she would speak her truth. She stepped forward. Her voice trembled at first and grew stronger with each word. "You say I am nothing without you, Victor. The truth is, I became everything without you." A murmur ran through the room. Aurora raised her chin. Her eyes sparkled. "When you cast me out, I was pregnant, not with one child, but with 3. She paused, pulled her children close so everyone could see their innocent faces. "These are your children, Victor. You left me to raise them alone." Exclamations of horror echoed. A woman in the front row brought her hand to her necklace. "My God, he abandoned his own children." Aurora's voice faltered. She continued, "While you reveled in luxury, I worked at night, scrubbing offices, folding clothes, babysitting for strangers. My hands were raw from product, my back in pain. My body was exhausted, but I kept going. Not for myself, for them." She looked at her children, her eyes softened. "Every tear I swallowed, every meal I gave up, every sleepless night, all so they would never feel unwanted, never believe they were a mistake." Her vision blurred as tears welled up. She let them fall. "You said I ruined your life, Victor, but these children didn't ruin mine. They saved it. They gave me a reason to get up when you wanted to break me. And tonight, I will no longer hide their faces. I will no longer hide my pain, because the world deserves to know the truth. You didn't just betray me, you betrayed them." The ballroom exploded in indignation. Voices overlapped. Shame! How could he abandon his own blood? She raised them alone while he partied. Victor's face contorted. Sweat ran down his temples. "She's lying," he shouted, desperation in every word. "These bastards, how do you know they're mine?" But as he spoke, the resemblance was undeniable. The same striking jawline, the same dark eyes. Gasps turned into murmurs of certainty. No one doubted Aurora anymore. Maximus approached, placed his hand on her shoulder, his voice firm. "She doesn't need to prove anything. Anyone with eyes sees the truth, and the truth will outlast every one of your lies." Aurora's tears glistened under the chandeliers. Her voice remained firm in her final words. "You try to erase me, Victor, but in these children, you can never erase yourself. They are living proof of what you are and what you never became." The ballroom trembled with applause. Some stood up. Tears streamed down faces. Aurora's revelation cut through the gleaming facade and exposed the raw humanity buried beneath wealth and lies. And in that moment, it was neither Victor's wealth nor Maximus's power that dominated the ballroom. It was Aurora's truth. The ballroom vibrated with noise, gasps, accusations, the buzz of scandal spreading like wildfire. The revelation tore Victor's last mask away. Guests, once blinded by the glitter of wealth, now stared with disgust. But Victor Sterling was not one to surrender. He slammed his glass on the nearest table, shattering it into shards. "Enough," he bellowed. His voice resonated.
You think you know the truth? You believe her, a bitter ex, him, a meddling billionaire? All of you are blind. I built this empire. I did, and I won't let you tear it down. His voice broke. Desperation leaked through. You call me a criminal? Prove it. Where are the police? Where are the judges? This is my wedding, my life, and none of you... Before he could finish, the doors burst open. 2 uniformed police officers entered. Their badges gleamed under the chandeliers.
Behind them, a serious investigator in a dark suit whose presence commanded silence. Guests gasped, some clutched necklaces, others raised cell phones, eager to record live history. Victor's face paled. "What is this?" he demanded, his voice trembling. The investigator stepped forward. He pulled a folded paper from his pocket, his voice calm and authoritative. "Victor Sterling, you are under suspicion for embezzlement, tax fraud, and money laundering. We have an arrest warrant." New gasps of astonishment. Cameras flashed, guests vied for angles. Victor staggered, shaking his head. "No, no, this isn't happening. It's a mistake. It's Thorne's doing." Maximus's eyes narrowed, arms crossed. "No, Victor, it's justice catching up to you." Victor turned to the crowd, seeking compassion, allies, someone to defend him. But the same investors who applauded him before now turned away. Politicians discreetly slipped out through side doors. Even the groomsmen stood aside, not wanting to be dragged down in his fall. "No!" Victor cried, lunging forward as the police approached. "Serena, where is she? Serena, help me!" His voice broke into a pathetic wail. Serena, and everyone knew, was already gone. The officers took his arms, handcuffing him with precision. He struggled, vociferated. The facade of self-confidence crumbled into a furious chaos of denial. "This isn't fair! I am Victor Sterling! You can't do this to me! I made millions! I made history!" The investigator's voice cut through the hysteria. "You made a mess, and now you'll answer for it." The crowd buzzed. Some shook their heads, disgusted. Others whispered it was high time. Aurora watched, her children clinging to her. For years, she had prayed for justice, for the world to see Victor's true face. And now, under chandeliers and cameras, he was exposed. Not as a triumphant groom, but as a criminal, dragged away in handcuffs from his own wedding. Victor's eyes sought hers as the police led him away. Hatred and fear burned in his gaze. "This isn't over yet," he spat. His voice echoed as he was dragged to the doors. "You'll regret this, Aurora. You all will regret this." The threats sounded hollow, drowned out by the disgusted murmuring and the click of the handcuffs. And as the doors closed, the hall sighed in unison. Victor Sterling had entered the night as a groom. He left as a prisoner. As Victor, handcuffed, was led from the ballroom, Serena Vance was already halfway down the hotel's marble staircase. Her heart pounded, her heels hammered the stone. Photographers surrounded her. She tried to hide her face. The flashes were relentless. "Serena, did you know about the embezzlement? Did you abandon your groom on your wedding night? Was it just for the money?" The questions tore at her composure. She had dreamed of this night as her coronation, the night she would ascend to the glittering sphere of wealth and power. Instead, she was fleeing in disgrace. Her designer dress dragged on the asphalt, the diamond ring left on the ballroom's marble. She plunged into a waiting car, slammed the door as cameras pounded on the windows. Her hands trembled as she dialed. Desperation clawed at her. "Hector, answer!" she snarled. Hector, her secret safety net, a wealthy investor she had insinuated herself with behind Victor's back. If the empire fell, she was counting on Hector to catch her. When he answered, his tone was icy. "Serena, do you think I'm blind? Your name is already in all the headlines. Do you know what this scandal would do to me?" "Please, Hector, listen to me," she pleaded. "I had nothing to do with this. Victor fooled me too. Now I'm free. I can be with you." He laughed bitterly. "Free? You're radioactive. No one wants you around. My reputation is worth more than your image.
Don't call me ever again." The line went dead. Serena stared at the screen. Her stomach dropped. One by one, she tried other contacts, model friends, rich acquaintances. Each conversation ended the same. Some didn't even answer. Others coldly dismissed her. Doors that once opened easily now slammed in her face. The next morning, the tabloids were already branding her the gold-digging bride. Photos of her escape graced the covers. Headlines dripped with scorn. From diamonds to dust. Serena Vance abandons groom in scandal. Brands she modeled for silently dropped her. Influencer partnerships vanished. As if fate wanted more cruelty, creditors began to gather.
Serena lived a life of luxury she couldn't afford. Credit cards maxed out, designer wardrobe bought on credit. Without the millions stolen from Victor, which supported her, the glamorous life crumbled overnight. Within weeks, she had to sell dresses, jewelry, even her car. Paparazzi caught her in simple clothes, unkempt hair, no makeup, an image the world devoured with malicious delight. The same people who exalted her beauty now mocked her fall. Alone in a dilapidated apartment, far from the world she coveted, she stared at her reflection in a cracked mirror. The woman looking back was no longer the radiant bride of a millionaire. She was another cautionary tale. For the first time, she understood the truth. She built her future on another's lies. And when the lies fell, she fell with them. Serena thought she was ascending to a throne. Instead, she had boarded a sinking ship. And now, without wealth, without allies, without love, only the bitter taste of her own ruin remained. The hall was quieter, though the weight of what had happened still hung in the air. Victor was gone, dragged away in handcuffs. Serena had fled in shame. What remained was the numb silence of 100 witnesses. Investors, politicians, society ladies, all stared at Aurora Hayes, the woman they had judged as nothing. Aurora remained at the center. The triplets clung to her dress. Maximus stood firm by her side. For years, she carried her pain in silence. For years, she cried in the dark so no one would see. And now, under the lights, she felt a liberation so strong it almost took her breath away. The children looked at her with wide, innocent eyes, sensing that something monumental had changed. One of the boys tugged her hand. "Mommy, are we safe now?" he whispered. Tears blurred her vision. She crouched down, enveloped them, kissed their hair. "Yes, my darlings," she whispered hoarsely, her voice breaking. "Now we are safe." Mommy kept her promise. The crowd, moved by the rawness of the moment, fell back into silence. Some secretly wiped away tears. Others placed a hand over their hearts, ashamed to have once believed Victor's lies. For Aurora, memories came in waves. Nights cradling 3 babies while her stomach rumbled. Days working until her fingers bled, praying not to collapse before the end of her shift. Humiliations, whispers behind her back, judgments, pity. The pain of seeing Victor's achievements in magazines while she cut coupons to survive. And yet, she survived. More than that, she persisted. Slowly, she rose. Her tears were no longer a sign of shame, but of triumph. She faced the audience, her voice firm. "For a long time, I thought I was weak, that I was nothing without him. But tonight, I am here to tell you I was wrong. Strength is not measured by wealth or status. It is measured by which you survived. And I survived everything he tried to destroy me with." The applause erupted, hesitant at first, then growing like a tide. The sound enveloped her, a balm for wounds that had festered for years. Aurora turned to Maximus, her eyes shone. "Why?" she whispered. "Why did you help me? You owe me nothing." Maximus's face softened. His own sufferings flashed in his eyes. "Because I saw what cruelty can do," he said softly. "I saw it happen to my mother. I saw it take my wife from me. When I saw you, Aurora, I couldn't stand by and let history repeat itself. You deserve more than to survive. You deserve peace. And maybe, just maybe, I deserve it too. Aurora's chest tightened, not from sadness, but from the fragile birth of hope. For so long, she had built walls around her heart. Maximus's words tore them down, piece by piece. The applause continued, echoing through the hall like thunder. Aurora let the sound wash over her, not as validation from strangers, but confirmation of the truth she already knew. She had walked through fire and emerged stronger. For the first time in years, she felt light, as if the weight she had carried alone was finally lifted. Aurora Hayes, once rejected, once forgotten, was free. The applause still echoed, but gradually transformed into a reverent silence. All eyes fell on Maximus Thorne beside Aurora, an anchor in the storm. Broad shoulders, straight posture, a gentle expression, but a fire in his gaze that would silence even the wealthiest. Maximus stepped forward, gently took the microphone from the stand prepared for the toasts. He looked at Aurora, and in that instant, the chandeliers seemed to dim around them, leaving only her in the light. "Tonight," he began, his voice firm, full of emotion, "we all saw the truth. We saw a woman who faced cruelty with courage. We saw a mother who protected her children with everything she had. Aurora Hayes, you are more powerful than you imagine, and you are no longer alone."
Aurora's eyes widened. She held her breath. She gripped the children's hands, not knowing what he would do next. Maximus knelt down, to the triplets' height. His gaze softened, his voice tender. "Children, I know I can never replace what was taken from you, but I promise one thing. I will never leave you. I will protect you, guide you, and love you as if you were my own." The crowd murmured, touched by the sincerity in every word. The triplets stared at him with wide eyes. One whispered, "Really?" Maximus smiled. His lips trembled with emotion. "Really?" Then he stood up. He turned to Aurora. He took a small velvet case from his pocket. A buzz ran through the audience. Aurora's hand went to her mouth. Tears welled up in her eyes. "Aurora," Maximus said, his voice faltering for the first time, "I thought my heart had no more room for love. I buried it with my wife, with the pain of losing my mother, with the shadows of betrayal. But then I saw you. I saw your strength, your pain, and your unwavering love for your children. And something in me healed. You reminded me that love is not perfection. It is resilience. It is never giving up." He knelt. The hall held its breath. "I don't want to be by your side just tonight. I want to be by your side for the rest of my life. Aurora Hayes, will you marry me and let me be the father your children deserve?" The hall froze in a chorus of gasps, then silence again, each guest leaning forward to hear the answer. Aurora's tears flowed freely. For so long, she believed she was no longer worthy of love, that no one would choose her again. And he was there, a man who knew pain, understood loss, a man who did not see her as broken, but whole. She knelt before him. The children clung to her, and she whispered through tears, "Yes, yes, I accept." A roar of applause filled the hall, louder than anything that night. Guests stood up, applauded, some wiped away tears. The triplets squealed with joy, throwing their little arms around Maximus's neck. He laughed and enveloped them all, Aurora and the children, in an embrace. And for the first time in years, Aurora felt something she thought was lost forever, hope for a future, not made of fear, but of love. The wedding Victor planned as a showcase of triumph turned into Aurora's rebirth. And this time, it was love, not cruelty, that stole the spotlight. The hall, once the stage for Victor's arrogance, radiated another energy.
The tension that had suffocated the air an hour before had disappeared, replaced by applause, cheers, and tears of joy. Aurora and Maximus were holding hands. The triplets clung to their mother's dress, while the same witnesses who expected humiliation rose in admiration. Guests approached, not to judge, but to sincerely congratulate them. A prominent investor came first. He bowed his head to Aurora. "Ms. Hayes, forgive me. I believed his lies. But tonight, you showed everyone what true strength looks like." He extended his hand and firmly shook Maximus's. "And Mr. Thorne, wise choice." Others came with words of support. Some even apologized tearfully for the gossip they had once spread. Women in shimmering dresses hugged Aurora. They said she had given them courage. Men who had toasted Victor clapped Maximus on the back, acknowledging his honor. For Aurora, the flood of recognition was overwhelming. Years of whispers and mockery had left deep wounds, but now the same mouths spoke with respect. It seemed unreal. For the first time in years, she wasn't just surviving in silence, she was celebrated. The orchestra, unsure of what to do, raised their instruments, hesitantly. With an almost imperceptible nod from Maximus, they switched from Mozart to something softer, warmer. The music embraced the hall, no longer a soundtrack of vanity, but of triumph. "Dance with me," Maximus murmured. Aurora blinked, surprised. "Here? Now?" He smiled. "Why not? Tonight is yours. Let the world see." He led her to the center of the marble floor. The crowd formed a circle. Maximus placed a firm hand on her waist and guided her to the rhythm. Aurora hesitated at first under the chandeliers, but his calm gaze melted her fear. Her body relaxed, she let herself be led. The triplets clapped, laughing, before being lifted by nearby guests who joyfully entertained them. The sight of Aurora dancing, radiant, intact, brought tears to many eyes. It wasn't just a dance, it was a declaration. A woman once rejected was now loved, her dignity restored before everyone. When the music ended, the applause returned, even louder. Maximus leaned in and whispered just to her, "This is just the beginning. From now on, every celebration will be yours." Aurora's heart swelled.
For so long, she had carried the burden of survival alone. To have joy promised, to have a future full of light, sounded like the sweetest gift imaginable. Looking around the ballroom, she saw something remarkable. The humiliation planned by Victor had gone so wrong that it had turned into a coronation. Aurora was no longer the poor ex-wife. She was a mother, a survivor, and now the woman beside one of the most powerful men in the city. And more importantly, she finally stood tall, on her own 2 feet. Glasses rose in unison. "To Aurora," someone shouted. "To courage, to love." The toast circulated the room. Glasses clinked, laughter echoed, and for the first time in years, Aurora allowed herself to laugh. What began as a night to break her became the night that rebuilt her, and the celebration, that was just beginning. Outside the Grand Crystal Palace, red and blue lights streaked across the night. Victor Sterling was shoved into the back seat of a police car, fists of steel, screams echoing down the street. No one was listening anymore. The world he had built on stolen money and shattered trust had collapsed, and all that remained was the cold reality of prison walls ahead. The next morning, headlines exploded in newspapers and websites. Groom arrested at his own wedding. The details of the embezzlement spread like wildfire. Offshore accounts, tax evasion, millions laundered through shell companies. Former allies turned their backs. Investors pulled out. The company imploded overnight. By the end of the week, Victor Sterling became synonymous with fraud. In jail, he had a meltdown. He blamed everyone but himself. He cursed Aurora for showing up. He cursed Maximus for exposing him.
He cursed Serena for abandoning him. But in the silence of his cell, when there was no one to hear his fury, the truth gnawed at him. He had destroyed himself. Serena's fate was no kinder. After her dramatic exit, she tried to cling to what remained of her glamorous life. One by one, doors slammed shut. Brands discarded her. Friends cut contact. Even men she had flirted with for security moved away. The gossip press devoured her downfall, from bride to betrayed. Months later, Serena was bankrupt. Creditors surrounded her. Debts piled up. The luxury she flaunted became a bitter memory. She sold dresses, jewelry, even the designer bag she had mocked Aurora for not being able to afford. Alone in a decaying apartment, friendless, she faced her reflection in the cracked mirror and recognized that she had become what she despised, forgotten and discarded. While Victor and Serena sank into their own ruin, Aurora's world flourished. Days after the wedding, people who had whispered behind her back now spoke her name with respect. Articles extolled her courage, calling her the embodiment of maternal strength. Invitations to charity events and women's foundations arrived. They wanted her to tell her story of resilience. But Aurora wasn't seeking fame. What mattered most were the small things, putting her children to sleep without fear, with the sound of laughter, waking up knowing she no longer had to fight every battle alone. Maximus supported her in everything. He didn't just promise love, he proved it. He held the children's hands on the way to school. He cheered for small milestones. He silently supported Aurora so she could build her own future. He encouraged the project she had once dreamed of, a foundation to offer work, housing, and dignity to single mothers. Together, they transformed pain into purpose. One night, weeks after the scandal, Aurora stood on the balcony of Maximus's house and watched the sunset gild the sky. The children played in the garden, their laughter like music. Maximus came up behind her, his hand warm on hers. "Do you regret it?" he asked softly. She turned, her gaze clear. "No, everything I went through, yes, it broke me. But it also made me stronger, and it brought me here, to them, to you." For the first time in years, Aurora's heart was light. The past no longer haunted her. Shame no longer held her captive. Victor and Serena lost everything. Aurora gained what mattered, and that was the greater sweetness of justice. Months passed, but the night of Victor's downfall was etched into collective memory. The story of the groom arrested at his own wedding became a parable in the city. People whispered about his arrogance. They laughed at Serena's betrayal. They admired the silent strength of the woman once treated as nothing. Aurora Hayes no longer walked with hunched shoulders or downcast eyes. She held her head high, not because of dresses or applause, but because she had finally recognized her worth. Every morning, she woke up to her children's laughter. Small voices reminded her why she had fought so hard. Their smiles were her crown, their love her treasure. With Maximus by her side, Aurora began to dream again. Together, they created the foundation for single mothers, women abandoned, invisible, and ridiculed, as she once was. The foundation offered shelter, education, job opportunities. Most importantly, she offered hope. When Aurora took to the stage to speak, she told her story without shame, but with pride. Each time she saw tears in the eyes of women who finally realized they weren't alone, her heart filled. But Aurora knew that the journey wasn't just about inspiring others. It was also about healing herself. Late at night, after the children were asleep, she and Maximus sat by the fire and spoke softly about their scars. He spoke of his mother's suffering, his wife's final battle with cancer, the loneliness that almost consumed him. She shared her darkest nights, the fear of failing as a mother, moments of hopelessness. In these quiet hours, they found not just love, they found understanding. Two wounded souls, no longer defined by pain, but strengthened by it. As for Victor and Serena, their names vanished in shame.
Victor's trial ended in conviction. His once proud empire turned to ashes. Serena slipped into irrelevance, an example of greed and betrayal. Neither of them escaped the shadow of their choices. One evening, the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky with fire and gold. Aurora gathered her children on the porch of their new home. Maximus enveloped her in a warm embrace. The children laughed, pointing at illuminated clouds. They called them castles in the sky. Aurora smiled, her eyes sparkling with calm joy. She whispered to herself words she had always wanted to believe. I am not weak. I am not broken. I am enough. She turned to Maximus, her voice firm. Do you know what the greatest victory is? He tilted his head. What? It's not revenge. It's not seeing them fall. It's knowing that I rose. It's choosing to live fully, to love deeply, and never again doubt my worth. Maximus kissed her forehead. His answer was simple. And you will never need to doubt again. The triplets ran into their arms, laughing, their joy pure and limitless. Aurora hugged them tightly, her heart swelling with gratitude. Through all the pain, through all the loss, life had guided her to that moment of peace. And so, the story that began with cruelty ended with compassion. The narrative of betrayal became a lesson in resilience. For every woman who watched, Aurora's journey brought a final message. You are stronger than the storms that try to break you. And no matter how deep the wound of betrayal, no matter how heavy the suffering, there is always a dawn where you can rise again. Thus ends the story. My dear friends, you have stayed with me until this moment, haven't you? If you have come this far, it's because something in this story touched you in a way you may not even be able to explain. And perhaps, just perhaps, it reminded you of your own strength. Life brings us betrayals, pain, and moments when we feel abandoned. But, as the Stoic philosopher Marcus Aurelius said, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. Aurora's journey shows us that no matter how cruel the world may be, we are never powerless. We can rise, heal, and transform our deepest wounds into the source of our courage. May this story tonight serve as a reminder. You are stronger than the storms that try to break you. You deserve love, dignity, and a future brighter than your past. If this touched you, leave a like on this video. Share it with someone who needs hope. Subscribe to the channel because here we tell stories that not only entertain, they remind us how to move forward and rise again.